Hello, my name is Mariah Chante, and I am your host. Thank you so much for choosing to listen to the Gradually Well podcast, which is a show that is intended for people that want to live life intentionally and they want to live their lives well. Every other week, I discuss a lesson that I have either personally learned or I share my perspective as a health and wellness coach that can help you on your health and wellness journey as well. Or I will invite a guest on the show so that they can share the lessons that they have learned gradually as well. And we do that all in the hopes of supporting you on your own journey with the goal of you getting closer to having that peace of mind and finding the energy to thrive, all while living well. Today's episode is exciting because it is an interview episode, and I'm interviewing one of my closest friends, Kristyn Weeks. And this episode is one of those shows or one of those things that you can listen to over and over again. I know I'm going to go back and listen to it at least a couple more times because we just covered so much and there were so many good parts in it that it's one of those things where you can listen to it again and pick up on something that you didn't get the first time or just need to be reminded of. Almost like you want to take notes in it. At least it was for me. So I hope that's your experience. I had a great time recording with Kristyn. She offers so many nuggets of wisdom, and I love that she shares her experience here with us today. One of the things that we talked about is that as people, and specifically as women, is what we addressed in the show, but we struggle with so many pressures in life. And one of those pressures is to be it all and to do it all and do it all at once. But the truth is, when we face those pressures of doing it all, and we're trying to do it all, and sometimes we are doing it all, but that sometimes comes at the cost of doing nothing well. So we go through learning that lesson that as a woman, you don't have to take on that pressure or that narrative that society has taught us that we have to do it all and be it all. There's so many roles that we fill just as people in general, but even as women specifically, there's this pressure to maybe be a homemaker and also create something for yourself, yet be independent and even be a nurturer. And that looks several different ways. One way is as a mom, but also there's other ways to nurture things. So you have all these different things that you want to do or are pressured to do. But at the end of the day, it's unrealistic to try to get us to do all of that and at one time. And so many women are just burning out and struggling with their self-worth because of that. And both Kristyn and I relate to that for sure. So Kristyn walks us through how she has overcome this narrative and this mindset of feeling like she has to give in to doing it all at once. And I think it is going to be super beneficial. So if you ever struggled with these pressures or are currently struggling with this is definitely something that you're going to want to listen to. So two things. First, I want to let you know that you are enough and you are valuable regardless of the roles and the titles that you fill or want to fill or whatever. Regardless of that, you are enough and you are valuable. The second thing is, I hope that you are able to listen to this episode and take what it is that you need to help relieve some pressure. Hope you enjoy today's show. All right, welcome back to the Gradually Well podcast. I'm excited for today's episode. Like I always say, I'm always excited, but that's because I have a guest on today. This is my good friend, Kristyn Weeks. She is a former preschool teacher and a certified school counselor turned stay-at-home mom. She has a beautiful family of 4, and they actually have a family and lifestyle YouTube channel where she and her husband Will share their passion for family, faith, and togetherness. And on top of all of that, she is one of my closest, dearest, and longest friends. So I'm really grateful that you came and decided to speak with me today, Chris.
Oh, thank you. That was such a good introduction. I'm so thankful to be one of your first guests. I'm honored.
Great, great. Yeah, I'm so excited that you get to be one of the first ones as well. We always have good conversations, so it
We
was
do.
a no-brainer to ask you to come on.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of our friendship is just the quality of the conversation. So I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same, same. So I figured I would start off letting the listeners get to know you a little bit better.
sure.
So there are 8 dimensions of wellness. I'll list them all. And I want to know which one kind of sticks out to you the most right now. You don't have to overthink it or anything. Just I'll list them and you can share which one either seems to be resonating the most with you and where you are in life right now, or one that you just really like. So
Okay.
the 8 dimensions are career, family, friends, romance, environment slash like your space, your personal space. You have
Mm.
finances, emotions, and spirituality.
I have to pick one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's tough. That's though they're really good. That's a tough one. Um, I guess honestly, I think family would be where I'm at in the current stage of my
Mm-hmm.
life.
Okay. And why
Yeah.
family?
Just the stage of life I'm in. Have 2 kids, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I'm a stay-at-home mom. So that's like really the forefront of everything going on. And we also just recently moved to Florida from Maryland. So all the circles have gotten really small and it's really streamlined and focused there. Not that
Yeah.
those other things aren't important,
Right. Right.
but I think that's just kind of where things are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see that. So, and that makes sense. And actually, speaking of your family, excuse me, your Instagram seems to be dedicated to, sharing what you're learning or going through as a mom, but also it offers encouragement and sometimes even tips. But you go
Mhm.
about it in an inspiring yet like realistic way. And I'm curious, what kind of inspired you to start your Instagram and share this message with people?
Well, I feel like social media has just blown up so much, but I just feel like so many of the moms that we see online
Hmm.
are just so curated and it almost makes motherhood adds an extra layer of like complication to motherhood because you have these moms online that's like don't do this, don't do that. Your kid needs to only eat this. They should be doing this, this and that. And it's like I already thought this was hard and now there's this extra layer, so I wanted to be a space that was honest and relatable,
Hmm.
so that people can look and see like, "Oh, if I saw her or when I see her out, it seems like she has it all together," or she has a degree in psychology and in counseling, and so she should be, like, really good at this, and there's no perfect way to be a mom, and there's
Right.
so many different avenues, so I just wanted to be able to be, like, a space where people can kind of exhale
Yeah.
and be honest and not like another place where it's like, "Oh, there's another mom that I need to compare myself to again, and, oh, I'm not getting this, and that right."
Mhm.
So mhm.
Yeah, that and I noticed too, like, I find your page to be a breath of fresh air, especially as
Thank you.
a mom myself. A lot of y'all already know I have a toddler, 1-year-old as well. And
Yeah.
it's just, there is so much judgment. There's like advice out there, but it's sometimes a little shady, like, because it's so
Yeah.
judgmental. And it's like, if you love your kids, this. And I'm like, okay, so if I don't do that, that means I don't love my
I
kids.
know.
It's crazy information. And then, we get information overload because everybody has an opinion. Everybody has like whatever. And then everybody also wants to say, check your facts. And I'm like, well, where did you get your information that you
I
feel so
know.
strongly about? So it's nice and refreshing to have access to a page that shares tips and it never feels in a judgmental way. And I think it's also because you don't just share like the perfect moments of you and
Yeah,
your
I try
kids.
not to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate the value that you offer in your page for sure.
Thank you. That's good. That's like a good reflection because sometimes I wonder,
Hmm.
am I still coming off as relatable and honest and a space of encouragement instead of like someone else where someone is looking and saying, "Oh, there's someone else that I can't live up to." So
Right.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Is it some of the same things like, that inspired you to start your Instagram? Does that translate over into what inspired you and your family to start your YouTube page as well?
Yes, and we wanted to be relatable and just like I just feel like the world right now, it just has so much going on. So we
Yeah.
wanted to be a space where you can kind of come and relax. You know that like you're getting something wholesome in a way where it's gonna maybe leave you with a smile on your face or make you feel encouraged, something positive.
Yeah.
And often people will, I don't know why, but people, oh, such a cute family, like when we're out. And so I was like, well, if people feel that when they see us out, then let's like try to put it out there and see if it can just be a positive space for people all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. That's good, and I mean, I was just watching your channel yesterday, I think it was yesterday, it might have been within the past
I
couple
think it
days.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, because Chris and her husband Will are on a weight loss journey together, and they just
Yes.
posted an update on the channel. And one of the greatest takeaways, I mean, first, congratulations on being able to see it through and continue the work. But I found that video to be like really helpful as well because, we always hear the stories of like, I lost 40 pounds in 3 months. And
Yeah.
people kind of celebrate that and they ask how they can do it because we want things quick, and fast and in a hurry. But oftentimes that's not usually attainable or sustainable and
Right. It's
or
not.
healthy. Like there's so many
Yeah.
crazy things that are being promoted and celebrated that we should maybe just kind of check to see if it's even healthy
Hmm.
for us. And I think a lot
Hmm.
of times people don't realize it is normal to kind of yo-yo, not yo-yo diet, maybe that's bad, but yo-yo and have fluctuations in your
Hmm.
progress. And that's a little bit of what
Absolutely.
you all were talking about. Like, I think it was Will that said, he had reached like a 20-pound weight loss
Hmm.
point, but then he kind of gained a couple
Went
pounds.
back up a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
And that is absolutely a lot of people, probably most people go through that, but we never really talk about that. You only see people say, I lost 100
Mm-mm.
pounds or I lost, and that's great. Not that that shouldn't be celebrated, but sometimes we leave out those little details along the way, and it can
Yes.
make people that are already struggling with something as big as weight loss or weight gain
Mhm.
connect to people that are posting it online.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. And for us, we wanted to make sure that we were being honest. It was I in that video, I don't think I went into it fully, but it was almost like pulling teeth to get me to post again
Mm,
because it's summer and for us, we've had a lot of family and friends visiting. And
yeah.
for us, we associate that with food.
Food.
We're still learning how to, I guess, have balance when in a vacation state, and that can take
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So our weight has been fluctuating because of that and just also just the ebbs and flows of life.
Mhm.
So I had in my mind, I was like, okay, the next time that we post, like I should be like 30 pounds down. Like,
Mm.
and then it was like, what you gonna wait 6 months before you post again? Like you can't do that. And that's dishonest. That's misleading
Mhm.
people that are watching. And um, so when we posted, it was like, let's just be honest. We are still making progress. You're going to see videos where someone has lost 50 pounds in 2 months. And you know what? If they figure out a way to maintain that loss, then good for them.
Right.
But I can tell you, if you put in a Google search or YouTube search or something, you're going to find videos of I lost 60 pounds and gained it back in a year. I lost 100 pounds
Right.
and gained it back in a year
Yeah.
because it's not sustainable. So we wanted to model what it looks like to kind of almost fumble along in a way, but where you finally get your footing to where it's actually sustainable and not eliminating everything, cutting everything out, doing things in such a drastic way that it's unattainable to
Mhm.
yourself and people around you. So I'm glad that you were able to pick that up from the video that it wasn't like, hey, like we've been perfect, squeaky clean this whole time. It's like
Mhm.
we're just figuring this out and finding out what's sustainable for us no matter
Yeah,
what.
yeah, and I think that's valuable. I mean, we talked about how that kind of transparency is necessary on like Instagram, and how with motherhood and parenting, there's already so much judgment, but there's probably just as much. I don't know. They're probably fighting for which one is more judgmental in the fitness and weight
Oh
loss
yeah.
working world. So those are two really big areas. When you said about the, oh, I can, people will post videos about I lost 60 pounds and then gained it in a year. It actually reminds me, I saw this video, or it was a study actually,
Mhm.
where you know the show The Biggest Loser? I don't know if it
Yeah.
still
Oh, yeah.
airs.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's a huge so for people that don't know, it's a huge show where they invite people that need to lose a good amount of weight, a lot
Mhm.
of weight, and they go through intense training and I guess different challenges to lose the weight over a period of time. And I haven't fully watched the show, but I know that once whoever lose, I guess, the most weight ends up
Yeah, they
being the
win.
winner or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the study was showing that a lot of times you get people, even if they don't win, they do undergo a huge weight loss most of the time. But
Mhm.
it showed that like it was either within 5 years or 10 years, however long after the study was of these people, that most of the people in the show had gained either all of the weight back or more.
Yep.
And it's crazy because, I know some people look at that show and they're like, okay, yeah, that kind of perpetuates the idea that I just need to go intense and really hard for 3 months to just get it off.
Mm-mm.
And then I'll be skinny, I'll be the weight that I want to be. And then that's it. But I'm like, for people
Yeah.
that were working with these like world-class trainers, that wasn't even enough to make it
No.
stick. So that just goes to show it's not usually healthy or normal to try to do that in a short amount of time and expect long-term results. So it's almost better to just, do the way that I feel you and Will doing from what I know, where you're taking it, you know, um, slowly and trying to do it sustainable and paying attention to all the nuances that maybe you didn't think of when you first started. Like
Right.
going on a big move is going to affect how you eat, and having
Yes.
friends and family come in and where especially where you bond over food where
Mhm.
is not usually, that can make it challenging too, and you're learning along the way. So I am grateful that you guys definitely put out content like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay. So for today, I did ask Kristen to kind of whether she shares it in like story form or just doesn't have to be a story, whatever, however she likes. But in regards to living life well, I wanted her to share a lesson that she has gradually learned that's really impacted how she lives her life today. And that could be anything. So I'll give you time to share that lesson.
Sure, yes. So, I took some time to think about it. Really good question.
Okay.
Um, and what I wanna say is I've learned that the idea, especially for women, that we can do it all and have to do it all in
Mhm.
every season is false, and it's actually harmful. And
Mm.
I've learned that gradually. I could share how I've learned that. Really, honestly, I feel like I started learning that when me and you met, like in undergrad. I feel like I
Oh.
started learning that in undergrad. So around from like 18, 20s to being a 30-year-old now, I feel like
Mhm.
I've learned that over time. Because in undergrad, let's use that as an example. Um, we're there to get an education first and foremost, but there's so many other things. It's your first time being out on your own. There's just all of this, like almost like flashing lights. You want to make friends, you want to find someone to date, you want to be
Right.
involved in this ministry, you want to be involved in this club, and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And I felt that when I was in undergrad, really what I needed to learn was you cannot do everything in every season, and you need to pick your non-negotiables, and streamline those things
Mhm.
and focus there. And
Yeah.
sometimes you might be able to do some other things, but you need to pay close attention, because once those things that are your non-negotiables start kind of getting out of place, or you get really off track,
Mhm.
you need to be able to reassess and shift and get back on focus. And I did not have a plan like that when I was in undergrad. It was just, wow, this is new, this is fun. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm here to get an education, but I also want to make friends, and I want to be known, and I want to be doing this and that.
Right.
And I can look back as a 30-year-old and tell my 18 to 22-year-old self, oh my goodness, slow down.
Right.
You don't have to. I don't need to go into everything, but we had these like student ministry events. You don't have to go to
Mhm.
every unchapel, which is basically a student chapel. You don't have to go
Mhm.
to everyone. Maybe even pick two, and then
Right.
maybe even use two to study.
Right.
And just the, that, and you can't be in every club. You can't do all this and maintain the level of education that you're paying money
Oh,
for.
that part.
Um, so in that time, if I was to streamline, then the non-negotiable would have been my degree and my education being quality,
Mhm.
maybe even networking and things like that. I see spirituality in that as like it flows into everything. So I wouldn't like necessarily say like spirituality first, then school, then this. I feel like it influences everything as a center.
Right.
But in terms of like, okay, education needed to be here. And I feel like there were times where I allowed peer pressure and FOMO and like this idea that if I don't do this, then who's gonna do it? Or if I don't do this, I'm gonna miss
Mm.
out to kind of
Yeah.
overtake. And there were times where I had assignments that I did really well that I got a B on or a lower mark on because it was late. And that was a repeated um that was a theme throughout my undergrad. And it's not that I regret it because I learned, but if I could go back now, I would say you need to streamline this.
Yeah.
This is not the way you want to go, and you're actually cheating yourself out of the quality of education that you could have. And you're also, your professors are the ones that write your letters of recommendation for when you get a job or go to even higher education. And I was just so focused on being on the worship team, which is great, but like that's not what I was there for,
Right.
or dating or whatever. When if I had just streamlined, I think I could have saved myself from feeling so stretched thin.
Mhm.
Um, and I think when you stretch yourself like that, there are symptoms that happen. I know I was dealing with depression, then I was dealing with anxiety. And I think some of that, sure, could be a diagnosis that can happen. But I think a lot of times, too, if we don't take the time to like look at all the ways we're being pulled and stretched, that actually causes some of those symptoms that could be reduced if you just kind of focus in one area. And so I learned that in undergrad. Excuse me. I learned that in undergrad. And then once I graduated, I was working full time. I decided to go to grad school. I ended up dating Will, and then we got engaged. We're planning a wedding. We're doing all these things at once. And I was pretty much one of the main people leading a youth ministry at my church at the time,
Mhm.
to the point where it felt that if I wasn't there, that the kids weren't going to get what they needed and that things were going to fall beneath me, which is,
Wow.
I'm getting to a point because I think when it comes to streamlining and realizing as women that, and I say women because it's the pressure is on women to do everything. Men are socialized, or the way we see it in society, men go to work, no matter if they're single or if they're married, if they're fathers. Most people think of them to go to work and be the breadwinner.
Right.
Not that there aren't stay-at-home dads now, but that's still
Right.
a culture that's growing. I'd love to see it grow, but that's the main narrative for men. Women are expected to have a perfect career and
Mhm.
have kids and be a great wife and keep the house clean and cook and keep your body right and just all these
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah.
I think that we're socialized like that from childhood. And so I think some of these things I learned from undergrad onward, like that informs the story that I'm telling. So I'm in grad school, I'm working full time, I'm planning a wedding, I'm doing all these things. And I was stretched so thin because I didn't take the time to sit down and maybe make the non-negotiables and streamline. And I'm leading this youth group that I think I have to do this.
Yeah.
I did love the kids, and I love the church. I
Mhm.
love the kids, but there's this level of um, pressure where that women feel that if I don't do this, then who will?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
that causes everything. I don't know. It just, you're almost on autopilot. You're doing so many things, and you're not doing them well.
Right.
And so if I could go back to at that point, I was 24, 25. I'm 30 now. That wasn't even that long ago. But I would tell myself again, just like undergrad, you need to sit down, make it plain, streamline. What are your non-negotiables? So in that season, obviously, I was getting married. My non-negotiable needed to be obviously my relationship with Will at the time and planning the wedding. Like I couldn't not do that. And that's seasonal too. Like that only lasts for a little while. So I
Right.
needed to push that to the forefront. school should have been up there too. I'm paying for that, and that's for my betterment and for my career. So, but I think I could have maybe dropped a class or something and let go of the idea that I needed to finish in this certain amount of time, just
Yes.
crunching everything in. And I needed to have, it's easier said than done now. But there's this whole thing sometimes when it comes to volunteerism and ministry,
Oh my goodness.
where we feel it's so hard to say no. And
Yeah.
I wish that I could have, um, I've learned that lesson, but back then I needed to say, hey, this is too much on my plate. So even if that means we need to kind of phase me out just to give you
Yeah.
time to find somebody else, that has to happen. Because I'm mentally unwell. I'm dealing with depression and anxiety, and my assignments in grad school are not um or either being turned in right at the deadline or late because of me trying to make sure I can still do this.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a theme here of me taking on too many things. And finally, it's crazy. I really think around the pandemic is when I actually had to slow down.
Yeah.
I had my daughter, Basie, I had her um, right before the pandemic hit. And we all know the story, everything halted.
Mhm.
Um, But I realized that at I had started trying to streamline. I had kind of started realizing this is too much. So I realized, you know what, I think I want to be a stay-at-home mom. So that means my career, I love counseling, I love mental health and social and emotional wellness. I can use what I learned in school as a mom, but the way that I want to do things, I need to stay home. So that means what? I'm streamlining. That means the career stuff just has
Mhm.
to wait. It doesn't mean it's never, but it
Right.
just has to wait for right now. So I started streamlining that. I Because we were at home, I realized like, wow, I did not realize how much volunteering and ministry was taking up so much of my mental space and
Yeah.
my emotional space that I want to be able to give to my kids
Yeah.
and take back for myself so I can be healthy. So
Right.
I started to learn like in my later 20s that like just because you're not there doesn't mean it won't get done. It's
Mhm.
not your job to do everything. You can't do everything well and be well for the
Mhm.
people in your life and for yourself. So you have to pick. And it might vary from season to season what you're picking, but you
Mhm.
have to. Because if you try to put your hands in every single pot, like you're gonna just be so stressed out. It's not going to be quality. You're going to look back and be like, I feel like I was flying by the seat of my pants. And sometimes survival mode kicks in and you have to do that.
Mhm.
But generally, when you're able to, it is so important to remember, like, I don't have to be every woman. Like, that's a great song. But,
Right.
you know, we're really not. And that's
Yeah.
okay. So pick your things and do them well, streamline those things. And maybe if you can reassess and say, okay, the season seems like it's shifting. Maybe I can add in this or take out that, but you cannot do everything at once. And I've learned that really through my 20s into being 30.
Mhm. Man, that's
Yeah.
you said so much good stuff, and that is an incredible lesson, and I completely agree that I wish I was reminded or told that at some point in my early 20s when we were in college. I don't think I
Yes.
said that earlier, by the way. Yes, Kristen and I met in undergrad at college, so
Hmm.
we've been friends for a long time now. But yeah, I could have used that advice too. And as somebody that, I mean, I know you remember, I mean, there were times I would go to Kristen crying, y'all, just because of the anxiety. And then
Yeah.
I couldn't even, and anxiety, like you said, there is a diagnosis and there is
Hmm.
part of that. But I think the way that I was living my life definitely contributed and exacerbated. I think that you're already going through so much in college, so much newness. It's a lot of people's first time being away from home and then also being responsible for themselves. And then at our college, there are even little things like at our college, there wasn't like a cafeteria where you can just go for breakfast, lunch. And I mean, you could go eat there, but it was like expensive.
Yep.
Our dorms had full on kitchens. So being responsible for thinking of your breakfast, lunch, and dinner and grocery shopping
Hmm.
for that was so new to all of us. And I mean, think about it, we're like 18, 19 years old. excuse me, 18, 19 years old, and having that on top of all this freedom and the responsibility of this, of education. And then we went to a religious school, so there was that pressure too, and we enjoyed
Yeah.
all of that. Like,
Mhm.
but I wish, like you said, like that maybe there was a little bit more direction, or we had just heard, I don't know from who, whether it was a school or somebody else, I don't know who to ask, that there was just some kind of indication that, you don't have to do it all. And I think that almost is a little bit against the grain of the advice that people give. I think
Oh yeah.
people that just graduate from high school, or not even just graduates of high school, but people that are young adults, they say to try everything. They say to get out there
Yeah.
and like, don't hold back. Like, you want to do this, do it. Because we hear people later on their life, they're like, oh, I wish I had did this at the third. And I do think you should experience things that you want to
Hmm.
experience. But I think with that advice that we give young people, um, that you should pair it with, don't forget your responsibilities. Like, there has to be some level of balance, and you don't have
Yes.
to try to do it all, because
Mhm.
you honestly can't. Even when you think you are doing it all, like you said, you're not doing it well. So,
Mhm.
and that is a big thing that I've talked about here on the podcast. Like, yes, you may be doing it all, but your experience and those people that are experiencing you doing those all, doing everything, isn't as great as it
Oh
could
yeah.
be, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
oh, that's a huge, huge lesson, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. There was something else that you said that really stuck out to me. Oh, when you said that, it's one thing to be in survival mode. And that is huge, because I feel like everybody, even if it was just with the pandemic, but everybody has experienced to some degree what feels like survival mode to them.
Mhm.
It looks different for every person, but I think sometimes we don't know or recognize when we don't have to be in survival mode anymore. And
Yes.
we're living in that state of survive, 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 when really we don't have to, but it's hard to acknowledge that, oh, I'm no longer in, I don't have to live with all this pressure and doing it all and this, that, the third. So we just continue to move that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
really stuck out to me when you said that. I'm like, oh yeah, we do
And
that.
I think it's taught to us.
Mm.
And there might be, I feel like this is a whole nother topic,
Mhm.
but I think even as Black women, to get into that,
Mhm.
that's how we were raised. And it's
Yeah.
not like to fault our parents, to fault our grandparents are great. That's like our history is
Mhm.
that we had to take on, and still have to an extent, take on so much
Yeah.
just to make it. Um, so that's been taught to us is you work hard, you put you give it your all, you do everything, and then you also still have to take care of the family. You still have to keep your body right. You still have to do this, this, and that. Like that's
Yeah.
taught.
Yeah.
And I was actually talking to Will about it, about how I've had to unlearn some of that stuff. I
Mhm.
had to decide what is actually important to me and what do I want my life to look like, versus even what family has said that has had good intentions. I've had a family member that was like, you need to go get your doctorate. And I'm like, and at first
Mhm.
I was like, maybe. And I was like, no, I'm a smart girl, but I do not love school like that.
Yeah.
I want the freedom to do what I want when I want, not have the deadlines come in and writing papers. Like I've done my time with that. I'm
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a shedding what we've been taught and shedding, kind of taking inventory, and if you're able to come out of that survival mode of taking everything on. Some people, I understand that that is a privilege because
Mhm.
I am married, I am a stay-at-home mom, I have a husband that pays the bills, and I recognize that there's a
Mhm.
sacrifice that I made of my career to get there. But I understand there could be a single mom listening to this who doesn't have that as an opportunity, and I recognize that. So there it is different, but even in that,
Mhm.
there's still things that you still have to decide what you're going to take on or not,
Yeah.
no matter what season you're in, and kind of say, you know what, like I know that that's even part of my cultural heritage to take on so many things, but I still need to give myself permission to release some of that because I can't. And it
Yeah.
was hard for them. And
Yeah.
so then it's hard for us to carry so much stuff. You can't.
Right. Right. And to your point that there is this pressure to uh, do it all and be so many things. And honestly, it's because one, we're already so many things. I mean, before it's like, oh, when you're younger, you're a child and you're a daughter and you're a sister or you're a cousin and
Yep.
you're a student and you're a Christian or you're this and you're that. Whatever it is, you're kind of born into and raised into labels,
Mhm.
whether they're just, that's how it is, or you're taught certain labels or, brought into that. And then they just keep growing, basically. A lot of people feel a responsibility to stay under the labels that they were given in their child years or young adult years from family and friends and well-meaning things, just as part of our communities, not making that a wrong thing, because it just is
Yeah.
what it is my point. But then as you get older, maybe you get into a relationship, you're all of a sudden a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you're a partner,
Mhm.
then you become a spouse, and there's so many expectations, even if it's from maybe your partner, but people will have expectations of you that aren't even your partner. And
Yeah.
if you're not doing that right, there's lots to say about that
Right.
as well. And then you know you also get into your career and you have these labels. So part of feeling like we do it all is because we do naturally have to participate and show up as a lot of things, and it can
Yes.
be very challenging to distinguish what we need to do and what we
Mhm.
want to do and what we decide to do.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times people, at least I can speak for myself, have struggled with the deciding part, because sometimes you think there is no choice. At least that's my perspective. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah, I think that's true. And when you say like what you need to do, what you want to do, what you decide to do, and I also think there's what we feel pressure to do
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there's things that I look back and I'm like, did I really want to do that?
Mm,
Or did I want to do it to the capacity that I did it, or did I feel like I either had to because that's what people expected of me, or did
yeah.
I feel like if I don't, then I'm missing something, or if I feel like if I don't do this, then like it's gonna affect my worth. Like there's just so many. I think a big lesson is learning to peel back the motivation behind what you're doing, and
Yeah.
that takes a lot of thought and time.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but it's so important because there's things that I can and look at that things that I might even like that I'm
Hmm.
like, why do I feel the need to do this now? Is it because like I feel like if I don't do it, then like I'm don't have as much worth as the other person who's doing that in this season or what?
Hmm.
Like I think there's so much that goes into the things that we take on.
Yeah.
And I think going back to if you have your non-negotiables in your season, then they're almost like an anchor of like, okay, so
Hmm.
from okay, right now, family is a non-negotiable. My own wellness is a non-negotiable in terms of like mental wellness, mental health is a non-negotiable, and my physical health because that took a back seat for a little bit.
Hmm.
So then so many of these other things, there's so many other things I'm tempted to, like I could try to be going out and making a whole bunch of friends. I have some, but like I can't do everything. I can't go. We are at a new church. We're taking our time with trying to get involved in serving because we also understand just how all consuming that can become.
Yeah.
And so if you just have to take inventory of what you're doing and why,
Hmm.
and if you see that your plate, especially because everyone's plate is different and everyone can handle different things. My
Hmm.
capacity is not your capacity. So someone might look at my plate and be like, that's it. Or someone might look at my plate and be like,
Yes.
you've got a lot going on. Either way, you have to know yourself and start to even know your tells and your signs of that you're taking on too much.
Yeah.
Um, and adjust it. But always if you have the things that are like, "This has to stay on the plate," then you
Hmm.
can either, like, sprinkle a little bit more at times where you feel like, "You know what? I think I can take this on. I think I'm good." Or at times where you're like, "This season is crazy. Like, I just
Hmm.
need to keep the non-negotiables on the plate and everything else needs to wait for a minute." you have to take inventory as to why you're doing something, why you want to do it, and is it even really like what you really want or feel like you need to do, or is it because you feel like that's what so and so said needs to be done, whether it's the Instagram mom or the career woman on Instagram or
Mhm.
whether it's your parents. Like there's just so much, I think, subconscious sometimes, or that we just need to sit and think about why we're doing things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree with that. So it seems like you're saying that in order to get this clarity of what you what is appropriate for you, because it is a unique experience to the individual, in order to get that clarity and help you make these decisions, you need to get clear on what is a priority or valuable to you. And
Yeah.
to do that,
Mhm.
you're going to have to take time to reflect on those kind
Mhm.
of things, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that absolutely makes sense because at the end of the day, a lot of these pressures come from um, so much noise and so much feedback. Like we were saying earlier, with having information overload between social media, but honestly, I mean that amplifies it. But even in your day to day life, there's so much input, and I know you can recognize this, whether it was being in a relationship or becoming a mom or being pregnant and then having the kids. Like so many people give so much just advice, and I'm not saying, I mean, advice isn't bad. Like we were just saying, we wish we had been told to kind of balance exploring new things with responsibility. So of course
Yes.
advice is a good thing, but I think also there is a lot just given to you, and we have to learn how to take something or leave something. And
Absolutely. Yes.
because
Mhm.
there's so many different pressures, especially like if somebody is older than you or if they're a family member, you just depending on how you're raised, you may be feeling pressured to consider everything or do everything that is told to you. I have struggled with it. I think a lot of people kind of that maybe goes into people pleasing tendencies and
Yeah.
everything. But again,
Yeah.
that's sometimes honestly what is praised by adults and everything. When you
Mhm.
are compliant and when you just listen to people, if that is what's praised, then you feel you're learning that you need to just listen to people that are older or have gone through what you've gone through. And I think there we maybe could learn to listen. You can listen, or I mean, sometimes you don't even have to listen to everybody, to be honest. But maybe hear that advice and then decide if you're going to take it on or whatever. And
Right.
you're not going to be able to do that if you don't know what is already valuable to you.
Yes. Agreed. Absolutely.
Hmm. Hmm. So, what does there was something else I was gonna ask you about that because there was on the tip of my tongue, but it's slipping my mind. That's okay. Um, Other than taking time to get clear on what is valuable to you and really trying to resonate with what you want to prioritize, any
Mhm.
practical things that you did in your journey to kind of help you maybe deal with guilt or shame or even decision
Mm.
making, anything that really assisted you? I know you mentioned before that sometimes it's hard because even family members would tell you to do one thing and maybe you had a
Yeah.
different thought or opinion. So how do you deal with that when your support system says one thing and
Mhm.
you don't really resonate with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's been a journey in and of itself. Um, Really, I think what has helped me personally is kind of actually acknowledging those feelings. Like there was a time where I had felt that a family was telling me that I wasn't spending enough time with them, and I was feeling
Mhm.
pulled in that direction. And there's been times where I felt that church leaders would say, "I just want more. I just want more. I just want more."
Mhm.
And I'm like, I already have so much going on. It doesn't mean that church isn't important. It doesn't mean that family's not important. And that's not what I was trying to communicate. But I remember feeling that like almost like you feel like you're being backed into a wall, or like you feel
Mm.
guilty. You feel, okay, well, how can I give more? And
Yeah.
I really feel like what helped me was talking it through. So you need someone to talk to about it. I would talk to My husband, I feel like I talk to you about things like this
Mhm.
too. Talking to friends, who could be a good soundboard to be like, do I sound crazy?
Yeah.
Like, is this, am I crazy? Am I really not giving enough? Or
Mhm.
is this just kind of our societal expectations? Because I think even just as a nation, we're just a hustle culture nation. It's people praise, so and so works 9 to 5 and takes care of her mom and also takes care of her kids, and she's always got dinner on her plate and her body looks snatched. Like
Mhm.
that's just, oh, I can't believe you're so great for doing all that. That's what we
Yeah.
praise.
Yeah.
And so I had to get with those uncomfortable feelings of like, wow, people are still going to continue to ask me for more. And
Yeah.
even now, there could be someone who still doesn't think I'm doing enough and talking about it, but then also kind of, you have to, I guess, telling people you have to get to a point where you have to be okay with the fact that there is always going to be something else that you could do and something else that someone wants you to do.
Mhm.
And getting getting familiar with that uncomfortable feeling. That might feel uncomfortable to you as someone that likes to do things.
Yeah.
Naturally, I'm somebody that is kind of like just content. I like to kind of keep things simple, but
Yeah.
some people um, always want to be doing something. And so,
Mhm.
but then if you realize that you're struggling with that, then you have to kind of be able to deal with those uncomfortable feelings because there's always going to be something else to add and realizing that that's okay. Like just because I can add this doesn't mean I should. And I had to learn that even with things that I love, like I love to sing and I love to lead worship at church. Right now, I'm not doing that. Um, and that's weird because I did it for years, but I realized like right now I have to focus on just getting our family settled, building a community, and that will come. So I
Yeah.
think also realizing that when people might make you feel guilty or you might feel shame, things ebb and flow. And to
Yeah.
maybe even be able to communicate, learn how to communicate with people. That takes practice. But for example, learn to communicate with that maybe a family member that might want more from you to say, "Hey, like this is what I can offer right now. It doesn't mean I don't love you, but I have this,
Mhm.
this, and that going on." Or maybe if you want to see me more, maybe we can meet in the middle. Maybe you can come and see me while
Yeah.
I'm maybe come over and we can maybe make dinner together so that it's helpful for both of us. Or maybe come over while I'm working on my paper. So I don't know. Come up
Right.
with talk to people and say, "Hey, I hear your concern and that's valid, but," and then hold your boundary. Learn how to hold your boundaries because you're gonna feel that uncomfortability, that guilt, that maybe that shame that might come up for a while you're learning how to assert what you can and cannot do. But that doesn't mean that because you feel guilty or shame that you have to do something. Like
Yeah.
that's, you have to learn, okay, this is uncomfortable. Let me talk this through with someone, have a sounding board, learn how to communicate your needs and just be okay with the fact that there's probably always going to be something else that you could add to your plate, but to learn to be content, look like be content. Have had to learn that. I love my family, but I have my degree, and sometimes I look at the people that I graduated from grad school.
Mhm.
Also, I have some really good friends that are like killing it in the school counseling game, and I
Yeah.
want see their stuff. They set up their offices and they're cute, and I can see like, wow, they're really killing it. And sometimes I'll look like and be like, wow, I feel like if I was doing that right now, I would really love it, and
Yeah.
I'm sure I would. But I picked what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that it was a waste to get my education, and it could swing back one day. But right now, I had to pick, and so I need to be content with what I've chosen. So
Yeah.
practicing actually being content with what you have and what you're doing in the moment, that way you can do it well.
Mhm.
Um, and it being okay that sometimes you might have a day where you're like, man, I wish I was doing something, something, or I feel really bad that I told my mom that I can't
Yeah.
dog sit for her twice a month anymore, or whatever the thing is. Like, you might feel bad and that's okay, but kind of stick with those feelings. Don't let those things be the reason why you kind of, I guess, violate your own boundaries.
Yeah. That's so good. And I think you're saying some really key things I hope people are picking up on. What I'm hearing is that, like, when you're getting used to setting boundaries or even getting clear on what your boundaries are, feelings of guilt and shame are not necessarily indications that you're doing the wrong thing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Because there's such a pressure, like, I struggled with that, especially because I was one of those people that love to, like, be super busy and have everything, but I noticed over
Mhm,
time that that was contributing to my anxiety and stress, so I was like, "I need to dial it back."
mhm.
And with that came, like, some guilt and shame because I built up this expectation with other people that I was going to always be able to say yes, that I was
Right.
always going to be able to do
Yep.
these things. So when I started to say no or not at this time or I don't want to, it
Mhm.
felt like it was a shocker for everybody involved. And there was a lot of guilt and shame on my part. And that, you can be misled to think that because you feel guilty that you're doing the wrong thing. I'm like,
Right.
"Mm, and I don't know where that narrative comes from. Maybe we are taught that as well, but
I think
I
so,
know
yeah.
that that has been a struggle. So I'm glad that you're emphasizing that uncomfortable feelings are part of the process, but
Yes.
it's also not. It we think that, oh, anything that's uncomfortable, I need to just go back to doing what's comfortable, but that may not be what is necessarily best or healthy for you.
Yes.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I think over time, as you practice existing or sitting with those emotions, they might come up a little less. Maybe not. For me, I feel like once I've kind of decided to streamline, this is what I'm doing in this season.
Yeah,
And if something is gonna maybe shake me this way or that way, I need to let that thing go.
yeah,
Whether I don't know how long, but for right now, I need to do this. Over time, I start to have less of those uncomfortable feelings when I'm saying no to something, or even if I see someone doing something that I also enjoy that it's just not the time for me to do right now.
hmm,
I because I've made my decision and I've made my decision, I can be content and joyful about it. So then I can see someone else and be like, man, you are killing that school counseling thing. I love it.
yeah,
I love to see it. If you have a little school list, let me, give you a little donation to your school list for your students and not feel so like intimidated or like that person is my competition because they're doing something that I decided to say no to.
yeah,
Once you make up your mind, have peace with that thing. And that
yeah.
might I'm not that is not easy. It is not. This is like
No.
something that's years in the making. But practice that.
Yes. Yes. And
Mhm.
I just to highlight that too, because Kristen is not saying to settle if anybody is confused. She is
No,
saying
no, no.
like being content is not the equivalent to settling. It is making a conscious decision that aligns with your values and your
Yes.
boundaries and realizing that there are seasons in life and that when you make a decision for you that maybe doesn't allow you to do everything that you're interested in, but it
Mhm.
allows you to do some things with that focus and allow you to do it well. That is not settling. That is choosing to do a few things well in that season, and that can change at any given moment. So
Yes,
please do not
perfect.
yeah, so please do not be confused and think that we are saying to just, since you can't do it all, you just have to sacrifice and
No.
be miserable because that no I no that is not what we're saying
No,
at
no,
all.
no,
So
no.
I just want to reiterate that and be clear on that because you can definitely do the things that you want to do, and like Kristen said,
Yes, you
who
can.
knows, at some point in her life she may do the counseling thing if she decides that and if that's what's going to be the most fulfilling thing for her.
Mhm.
But that's the beauty of making these decisions unique to you. It is you can change your mind at any
Yes.
time.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Wow, that there was so much good in what you said there. I mean, like a lot resonates with me. And it seems like that since you have made these kind of decisions to get clear on what works for you by like
Mhm.
establishing your values and establishing your boundaries and also something you said earlier, kind of diversifying your support.
Yep.
Like, support, I could do a whole episode on support. We
Yes.
with Kristen actually, we could
Yeah, that's such an important topic. Yes.
because family is so important, yes, and they're irreplaceable in a lot of ways. But also, you have people that say family's who you choose too. So
Mhm.
yes, you can have friends. Kristyn and I have relied on each other with lots of tough things that we've gone through in life. So your different friends can offer maybe different support than your family. And there's also professional support as well.
Yes.
You have therapists, you have coaches. I mean, you have one. Kristyn's a therapist and I'm a coach, so there's
Oh,
examples that we believe in professional support to be offered. And so diversifying your support is
mhm.
something that can really help you get in tune with um, getting used to getting used to living a way that is suitable for you,
Yes.
basically. So doing all these things, getting clear on the values, setting your boundaries, diversifying your support, and knowing that uncomfortable feelings are not an indication of whether you're doing something wrong or right all the time
Yep.
is our tips, like very practical things that you can take going forward on um, living a life that is aligned with the way you want to live.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. That's like the perfect sum.
Good, good. And the result of all of that is, of course, less stress. I always talk about having less stress because I
Yes.
think that is one of the biggest drivers for not just feelings of overwhelm, but it really translates in a physical way. I mean, there are so many illnesses or diseases that are just made worse or even come about because of unaddressed stress. So,
Absolutely.
but of course there's other benefits too. Like, you have less stress, but you also have more fulfillment in life, more
Mhm.
clarity of thought, more gratitude for where you are. Like you were talking about contentment, and that's a great thing to have as well. So, there is value in taking the time to learn this. And like Kristyn was saying, that it's not an overnight process. Like
No.
she started learning this message in her early adult life as a undergrad, like 18 years old, and now 30 years old. It
Yeah.
really sinks in. And of course, we have to be reminded of these things as well. So please do not think that we are saying that, okay, just sit down one afternoon and do all of this and you will be well,
Yeah,
because
no.
that's not, I mean, the podcast is called Gradually Well. So
Gradually,
it's
yes.
gonna be a process no matter what we're talking about here. Um, okay. Anything else you want to say on this topic, or share any encouragement or tips or anything else that we missed?
Just that, your value does not lie in what you do. And whoever's listening, whatever you have on your plate right now, whether it's you feel like it's just enough, too much, or you want to add some more, just take some time, think about it, and don't do it from a place of, this is going to impact my worth. Like you're worthy and valuable no matter what you do. Just take inventory and take your time with it, and you can gradually learn how to take on what you need to take on.
That's so great. Thank you, Chris. Before we wrap up here, I'd like to ask, in one sentence or less, what does living well mean to you?
I'm bad with a one sentence. Y'all can already hear that. But living living well means living intentionally, on purpose, and joyfully.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, there's joy in that and intention. Yes, that's great.
I tried.
Yeah, that's good. Well, again, thank you so much for all the gems that you dropped today and for having this conversation with me. I really enjoyed it.
Me
Please
too.
tell people where they can keep up with you on social media and everything.
Yes. So we have a YouTube channel, as Mariah mentioned, and it is our channel is called Weeks Watch. Um, Weeks like days of the week, watch like you're watching, or your watch on your wrist. That is a good place to actually see us in action. But we also have a Weeks Watch Instagram. It's just Weeks Watch underscore. And then my Instagram, my personal one, which is the one that Mariah was mentioning, is Kristyn Weeks underscore, and you can
Perfect.
find all of our stuff there.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to have all three of those in the show notes so that it'll be easy for you. You don't have to remember off the top of your head when you go look her up. So I will have all three of those things linked. But thanks again so much for coming, Chris.
Oh,
I
thanks for
really
having
enjoyed it.
me.
Yes, yes. All right. I will talk to you later.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Wasn't that good? I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to this conversation with Kristyn. Like I said, she is going to have to come back because I had a really good time and feel like she just even has more to offer the world. And I hope it gave you something to think about and how you can look at your life, or even if it's nothing you feel like you need to change now, maybe you just got some validation and support that you're on the right track. So again, thank you so much, Kristyn, for coming on and sharing your thoughts and your wisdom and the lessons that you have learned in your own life. Please share this episode with a friend if you found it valuable. I guarantee you somebody else with, especially since you don't know how somebody else may always be struggling. So share this with a friend. It might really help them out. But I think that's everything. So until next episode, bye.